Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto found himself in a modern harem with Hinata, Temari, Ino, and more part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please give me hype instead of comment and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. You bet me. She pointed a finger at him. You bet me a month's worth of car washes that I couldn't keep up with you. Just saying that made Hinata shudder as she cleared her throat to stop the rise of the acidic vomit, which threatened to go against the gradient she regretted drinking last night since she rarely drink. In the name of female honor, I had to pop that inflated ego of yours. Female honor. Oh, right, that's it, he said, laughing. Uzumaki Naruto then smiled mischievously at her. He looked handsome, as usual, Hinata noted in disgust. That gorgeous summer tan he kept all year long held no tinge of post-party green. His cerulean eyes weren't bloodshot, but lit with devilish humor. His golden hair and pearly smile made him look like he ought to be on the cover of a magazine. He looked as if he'd passed the previous evening curled up with a book and a glass of warm milk, when she knew perfectly well how he'd spent his night. He'd spent it making sure she'd be miserable in the morning. Shut up. Hinata eyed him balefully. Or I'll throw up on your Armani suit. And wouldn't that go gorgeously with the decor, he quipped, glancing Ino the church. I think Temari's got every gardenia crammed in here. Hinata stepped into the small foyer of the church and stopped dead, assaulted by the overpowering floral scent. In her hungover state, the smell almost knocked her off her feet. Oh, no. She started taking quick shallow breaths. Oh, God. Huh. Oh, nuts. Hold on, Sonny. Naruto was at her side in a flash, the teasing look replaced with serious concern. He anchored her with on strong arm. Take it easy, you're going to be fine. They can wait a few more minutes, he assured her, his voice low and comforting. Hyuga Hinata was bridesmaid to Temari and Shikamaru's wedding. She sported curls and a restricting pale pink one-piece bridesmaid dress. She never liked pink. How does Temari look? Hinata asked, MRE to get her mind off puking. Naruto shrugged, like she was caught in a lace factory that exploded. Feel any better? Hinata chuckled appreciatively. Not tremendously, Hinata sighed, but it would have to do. My only goals for today are not throwing up on anyone and avoid the killer question. He snickered. You mean, he said, mimicking a nasal feminine whine, so, when are you getting married, Hinata? Exactly. Even so, Hinata tried to ignore the pang the question caused, even asked as a joke. It seemed as if she'd been facing questions like this forever. Hinata reminded herself that was single by choice. She then curiously noticed the small smile that haunted the corner of Naruto's lips. When they stepped into the church, she saw 10 pairs of eyes snapped toward them eagerly. All of Naruto's and her aunts homed in on her, calculating smiles on their faces. So I guess you won't bet me a month's worth of laundry that you can successfully avoid my and your aunts at the reception. Naruto whispered gleefully. Before you got here, I sort of suggested that you might be interested in their advice in the manhunting department. Make it 2 months, Hinata said through gritted teeth, and remind me to kill you when it's all over. Ooh. I'm looking for Hinata, Naruto yelled over the din of the speakers and the laughing, boisterous couples on the dance floor. She disappeared on me right after we took pictures. Have you seen her? Nope, I haven't, his brother, Gaara replied, looking at the crowd of guys near him for a response. They all shook their heads. If you see her, though, tell her we're having a poker match tonight at Kiba's. Naruto nodded. If anything that would get our out of hiding, it's a good game of poker. Thanks. He continued his slow tour of the large ballroom. He was so intent on tweaking Hinata out of her gloom and giving her something to do at this reception other than focus on the killer question, that he'd forgotten he was the target of the same question himself, not from his aunts. He'd been sickling the reception hall for more than 2 hours, looking for Hinata, while trying to avoid being singled out. Emphasis on single. Ordinarily, he wouldn't mind a room filled to the roofs with pretty single women. But this was a wedding, and that changed the rules. Suddenly, asking a woman to dance was tantamount to handing her a wedding ring. It is a dedicated bachelor's nightmare, Naruto reflected. If he had Hinata by his side, at least he'd a better chance at fending off the hungry stares and blatant invitations. It figured that the girl he was searching for was the one girl in this whole sea of single women who wasn't looking for matrimony in general, or him in particular. He sighed. She might say that she was ready to kill him, but that wasn't what was keeping our hidden. He sensed that Threer was more to Hinata's avoidance than just being frustrated with his family's gentle pressuring, or their inability to accept her tomboy ways. If she avoided him for this long, she wasn't angry, she was upset. And he was going to find out why if he had to drag it out of her, or bet it out of her. He felt a hand on his shoulder and tensed. There you are, bro. Naruto turned, grinning in relief. Hey, Shika. So, how does it feel being married to my sister? Shikamaru smiled, his brown eyes lighting up like candles. I've never been happier in my life. So, you say now, Naruto joked, giving his new brother-in-law a friendly punch on the arm. Trust me, Shikamaru said, when you find the right girl, there is nothing in the world that feels more perfect. Nothing at all. I'll take your word for it. Naruto shifted uncomfortably. Weddings seem to cause some weird chemical changes in women. If I asked any one of these single women here if they'd run off to Vegas to get married tonight, I think they did in a heartbeat. He gazed around the room, shaking his head. And they don't even know me. Was that Hinata? Shikamaru craned his neck to squint at Hinata's disappearing form. The hangover didn't help, Naruto added, trying in vain to track her. I dragged her to the bachelor party last night and bet her she couldn't drink as much as I could. Shikamaru scowled. You brought a woman to my bachelor party. No, I brought Hinata. There's a difference. When Shikamaru didn't look mollified, Naruto shrugged. I kept her off in the corner, Shika. Besties, she's been one of the gang for years, and we didn't do anything even remotely shocking. It's the principle of the thing, Naruto. You know, no girls allowed. Shikamaru shook his head, finally laughing a little. And Hinata's not a bad-looking girl, either, when she gives it a shot. I can only imagine what she looks like when she's not green. Of course, it might help if she didn't look like she was plotting your murder, either. Naruto laughed. She'll get over it. It might take a while, but she always does. And she. Hi, Naruto. The two men turned to see a lush-lipped redhead, staring at Naruto with deep green eyes. Her voice was husky, but slightly overdone. I've been watching you run around all night, Naruto. You're missing a great party. Want to dance? Naruto sighed. Sorry, I'm looking for someone right now. Maybe later. Like in 20 years. You sure? She drawled, making a seductive little shimmy that did nice things to her dress. Whoever you're looking for could probably wait a while. Naruto sighed even harder. Hinata, where the heck are you? Really? I'm sorry. The woman pouted. Suit yourself. What's the matter with you, Naruto? I'm surprised you turned down her offer. Shikamaru was a little thrown off. She had, husband hunter, written all over her, and I don't play that anymore. Naruto shuddered. No, thanks. It was Shikamaru's turn to sigh. It's only one dance. You could find Hinata later. Let me explain something, Naruto said seriously. When I was younger, I had a few serious relationships. One even came close to marriage. All of them ended like train wrecks. Ouch. My friends were the only thing that got me through them, Naruto said seriously. That's when I figured out that I don't do commitments anymore. Why should I? I party with the guys whenever I want, I have a job most men would kill for, and I have a best friend who knows me inside out, who's there for me 24/7. Women come and go. With a rather high turnover rate, in your case, Shikamaru interjected. But friends are forever, Naruto smiled smugly. If I just stick to that, I have literally the perfect life. Shikamaru laughed. I've got to admit, it sounds attractive. But there's just one problem. At the moment, it's Hinata, Naruto conceded. But she never stays mad at me for long. She'll feel better as she gets even. The problem is, Shikamaru continued, you're going to fall in love one of these days. And that's going to throw your perfect life out of orbit. Never happen. Naruto winked. He'd caught sight of Hinata, speaking with some young women over by the side of the dance floor. I've got it all under control. Before he could make a move towards Hinata, the women swarmed over to where he and Shikamaru were standing. Oh, I think it's wonderful, one of the women gushed. He blinked at her. What is? That you so desperately want to adopt a young child that you're going to ask someone to marry you tonight? Surrounded by beaming hopeful faces, he looked over to see Hinata grinning back at him from ear to ear. Yup, Shikamaru said, patting him on the shoulder. Obviously, you have everything under control. Hinata would have been enjoying her revenge immensely were it not for Naruto's sister, Temari and brother, Kankuro that finally cornered her. Reluctantly, she went up to the hotel room the Uzumakis have rented, flanked by them, as if she was a prisoner. While she had managed to avoid the aunts, these two could not be dodged. They went into the room and Hinata spotted her cousin brother, Neji picking loose strands of hair that were sticking to his sweaty face in front of a mirror. He had his hair in a ponytail. When the door shut, he looked up. Hinata could have sworn his eyes glazed over her and smirked in approval. You really should maintain that look, cousin sister. Temari, MMHMM, and Kankuro nodded vigorously. You need this book, Hinata. Temari shuffled around the sofa and produced a copy of the guide, How to Go from Miss Wrong to Mrs. Right in 1 Year in Thin Air. Hinata's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. No, no way. She raced for the door, but Kankuro was blocking it. He kneeled and threw her over his right shoulder, bringing her to the living room. Kankuro passed Neji and couldn't help but smack him in the butt. Ooh. Neji jumped a little whilst Kankuro chuckled. Neji pouted. Be careful in the bedroom, baby. I'm going to tackle you down. Oh, yeah. Kankuro flicked his dirty blonde hair, giving Neji a once-over. I want to see you try. Neji swallowed as his eyes followed down to Kankuro's bottom, accentuated by the low riding pants. That powerful stride and strength. Neji licked his lips unconsciously as he noted Kankuro flipped Hinata over, carrying her in bridal style for a moment before gently connecting her bottom on the sofa cushions. You two should get a room. The energy is so high in here between you two, Temari chortled, crossing her arms and shaking her head. Hold Hinata down for me, will you, dear brother? I'm trying to get into Shikamaru's surprise gift. Temari picked up a little white lace nothing. No problem, Kankuro said, his eyes never leaving Hinata's. Hinata sighed. There was no escape. Neji came and sat right beside Hinata. Temari had left the magazine on the arm of the sofa and so, he took it and pushed it into Hinata's hands. She groaned. You have got to be kidding me. It worked for me, Neji replied, tugging at her lumpy curls. And it worked for Temari. You can't argue with success. Temari's practically glowing. Don't you want to be as happy as she is? Hinata grumbled, eyeing the cushions and formulating a plan in her mind. Why is it when your friends get married, they suddenly expect you to? She asked absent-mindedly. You're 28, Hinata, Neji said firmly. Hear that ticking? Temari emerged fully clothed with her traveling coat on top. That's your biological clock, Kankuro said without missing a beat. Well, Hinata waved her hands, I'm hitting the snooze button. Denial, Neji announced, grabbing Hinata's chin and angling her face until they were eye to eye. Ever since you've graduated from college, you've been burying yourself in that design firm and hanging out with those grubby guys. They're not grubby, Hinata interrupted. What your darling cousin is suggesting the same thing I have in mind, Kankuro said calmly. Right. I don't know how many sets of grubby sweatshirts that I've seen you go through. And heaven forbid, those baggy pants, Temari issued. Hinata put her hands up. Hello. Do you guys have ESP or something? Although annoyed, Hinata took a long glance at the book. Miss Wrong. As much as she touted that she was single by choice, The truth stared in her face whenever she looked at her friends. Hinata always felt like a dull brown when standing next to exotic birds. She was just a glass of milk. Even so, she did not want their pity. I don't see what the big deal is, Hinata finally answered. I know I have only one serious relationship, but it was really a convincing experience. Now, I'm enjoying my life. I've got a great job that pays well and wonderful friends. Please, couldn't you just let it go? Before Neji or Temari or Kankuro could respond, Naruto popped his head through the doorway. Hey, the car's revving Pan so's the bridegroom, he yelled, where's Temari? Temari quickly dived into the bathroom. Getting her traveling suit on, Neji answered, obviously irritated with the interruption. Good grief, Naruto said, walking in and rolling his eyes. What is it about women that takes them so long to get dressed? It's never taken me that long to get clothes off a woman. And Lord knows you've had practice, Hinata muttered, clambering off the sofa with one cushion in hand. For defense. You and I need to have a little talk, Naruto said, his eyes glinted with dark promise. Hinata grinned. We can discuss it when you do my laundry for 2 months, oh unlucky one. Naruto. You're not helping. Kankuro bellowed, glaring at him. I'm glad he's a manly gay, not like sissy type, Naruto thanked God in his head. It's a little strange when you have a gay brother. Your perceptions could change drastically. Even so, Naruto was never ashamed of Kankuro's sexual orientation. He might be a little embarrassed to say outright that, my brother's gay, but he gets extremely offended when mean jokes were made towards Kankuro. What do you mean I'm not hell? His sentence hung in the air. Naruto's eyes fell upon the magazine Hinata had been holding. So it seems, that Hinata had been unconsciously taking the guide with her. Ooh ho! Naruto tugged at the guide. However, Hinata held on fast. Oh, no you don't. Let me see, Naruto said, tugging stubbornly. Let go, Hinata cried. I'm ready, Temari sang, opening the bathroom door, only to gasp in horror as she caught sight of her brother and bridesmaid tussling. Temari looked at Neji's shaking head. What is going on here? Taking advantage of Naruto's momentary distraction, Hinata made one last yank of the magazine. She managed to tug it away from him, but overbalanced. With muscular grace, Naruto reached back and scooped Hinata upright. Then, he promptly snatched the magazine out of her hands. You dirty. The guide. Oh, good grief. Be dramatic, but be demure. You're a woman. Be a woman, Naruto recited in a mocking tone. What else would you want to be? A poodle. He guffawed at his own joke, ignoring the foursome glaring at him venomously. Oh, Hinata huffed. Give me that. She took full possession of the magazine. You don't want to be Mrs. Right in 1 year, anyway, Naruto said with certainty. He then narrowed his eyes. Do you? Yes, a tiny voice inside her whispered. In 1 year or a decade, she wanted to be right for someone. She wanted to find someone right for her. Of course not, Hinata replied, disguising her true answer. Don't you dare patronize her, Naruto. Neji said in a protective tone. Hinata might not think it's what she wants, but she hasn't had enough experience to say definitively. Besides, she's got a lot going for her if she tries. Given a little time and a little effort, Kankuro continued enthusiastically. She'd have a gorgeous suitor at her feet in 3 months. Temari added. Hinata felt a burst of panic. Naruto shook his head, throwing a casual arm around Hinata's shoulders. Why push her? Hinata's my best friend and I know her better than anyone. You can't tell me that she's going to read one stupid magazine devoted on making women look like Barbie and then suddenly turn into a wife. Hinata was about to protest, but Naruto carried on confidently. She's not even from the same planet as those women from the guide. I mean, the women who use that as a game plan go at it like pros. They've got the looks, the moves, the whole 9 yards. They turn men into putty. Naruto grinned at Hinata. We both know you're not like them, Sonny. His 2 siblings and Neji stared at him, dumbfounded by his little backhand compliment. Neji looked anxiously at Hinata. She was shaking. Oh, yeah, Hinata pushed his arm off her. Try me. I bet you $50 that I can get Mr. Right in 3 months. No, thanks, Naruto said, chuckling. If we're going to bet, I'd like at least a minor challenge. Hinata's blood began to boil. She privately didn't think she was some skilled seductress, granted. Hearing him announce so easily that he knew she wasn't one was something else entirely. $200, Hinata said, her pride pushing her. Seriously, Naruto smirked. You're getting way over your head. Now, her head was pounding. She wanted to smack that smug grin off his face. $500. Finally, some of his amusement slipped. Naruto was no longer smiling. In fact, his face looked grim. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to listen to one more. $1,000. Neji was staring at her speechless. Kankuro and Temari's mouth had fallen open. $1,000 says you don't think I can do it, Hinata repeated, staring at Naruto's face. He paused, then looked at her shrewdly. Only if you make it 1 month. He waited for her to back down. She didn't waver. Deal. With a swift motion, Hinata grabbed his hand in a hard shake. Naruto stared down at her for a moment longer, and then shook his head. Fine. I'm going downstairs and tell the men you're taking your time, he said to Temari. I'm sure you're going to want to stay a few more minutes to work on a game plan. That is, before Hinata drops $1,000 in a month. Giving Hinata one last smug wink, he strode out the door. Oh, my God, Temari breathed. I can't believe you did that. What is done, Kankuro said, nodding in approval. Then, suddenly, he panicked. We've only got a month. A shopping trip, first thing. No, wait. My hairdresser. Neji cried. And maybe a facial, Kankuro added. Facial? Nothing, Temari interrupted. Full day of spa treatment. Temari dived for her purse, producing a business card. I'll be back from Hawaii in exactly 2 weeks. You guys take care of clothes and makeup. I'll work out a strategy. Temari hugged everyone in the room before taking flight down to meet her husband. Her eyes glinted in dark promise of helping Hinata and a long night full of raw passion. Down below, Gaara asked Temari why does she have that secret smile on her face. Ooh, Gaara, you wouldn't believe what happened. $1,000, Neji said, glancing at Hinata with a curious gleam of pride. Unbelievable. Hinata gritted her teeth. I've never lost a bet with Naruto without a fight. Now, shush, she ordered, a vice-like grip on the glossy magazine. I'm trying to read here. 8 o'clock the next morning, the persistent sound of her doorbell jarred Hinata from a restless sleep. She stumbled out of bed, muttering and rubbing at her sleepy sandy eyes. If it's Naruto, you might as well know that I decided to forfeit, she called. I must have been insane. Would you just leave me to wallow in my singleness in peace? Not a chance, a muffled male voice countered. It's Neji and Kankuro. Open up. Hinata groaned. Even worse. She unlatched the chain and cautiously pulled the door open. Neji looked dashingly pretty with his loose locks, sharpening at the end. With a dash of makeup and tight slacks, Hinata noticed how feminine Neji looked even as a cross-dresser for today. Kankuro grunted at Hinata's stares. He had a hand low on Neji's waist. Rubbing gently, he said remorsefully, unfortunately, Neji's not ready for a skirt just yet. Hinata quirked an eyebrow at Kankuro's comment. Neji didn't seem to notice. Well, Neji looked fat too enthusiastic about being up early on a Sunday morning. Today is the first day of the new you, Hinata Hyuga. Are you ready? What are you? Captain of the matrimonial cheerleading squad. Hinata shuffled over to the kitchen and yawned. Besides, I'm not going through this. I did a lot of thinking, and I'm going to get Naruto to drop the whole thing. I don't need to prove anything. Oh no, you don't, Neji countered, frowning at Hinata as she unslung a fair-sized bag from her shoulder. He started piling small jars, bottles and tubes on the kitchen table. On any other bet, I'd probably be trying to stop you myself. You two managed to come up with some fairly idiotic ones, but this time, I'm all for it. Right, honey. Neji asked Kankuro for support. Without turning away from his task of scrambling eggs, Kankuro slipped the sturdy apron strings into a ribbon behind his back and said, "Of course." Even Gaara promised to help. He did. Neji's eyes watered. "See, everyone wants you to win the bet. Even Hanabi agreed to help out." Hinata narrowed her eyes. "Father does not know of this, right?" No, he doesn't. He doesn't even care if you look downright dumpy. That's exactly the point. Neji continued, "I've waited 10 years for you to do something with those buried gorgeous looks of yours. There is no chance in heck I'm letting you off that easily." Hinata groaned and draped herself onto a chair, striking a very dramatic damsel in distress pose. However, when she saw the bottles, jars and tubes starting to form a mini hill on the counter, she started to eye the supplies warily. "What's all this for?" Neji gave her a wide smile. "This is step 1. Step 1. Hinata picked up one of the bottles. The label was in Swedish and most of the ingredients had 20 syllabus. "How many step are there?" The egg popped. "That depends how cooperative you are." Kankuro smirked at her. Neji proceeded to get a box of oatmeal out of the pantry, then mixed some water in a bowl. Hinata looked horrified and said, "I wasn't planning on eating breakfast." She almost gagged at the sight of oatmeal and water, but the aroma of scrambled eggs pushed the growl in her stomach to a discernible sound. Hinata groused, pouring herself some cold milk from the fridge. "This isn't for your insides. This is for your outsides." Hinata gulped down a glass of milk as she saw Neji grabbed one of the bottles and added some green liquid to the bowl, then studied the resulting mixture. "It's also going to get a little messy. Here, stir this." Hinata stirred, then gaped as Neji produced a clear plastic tarp from her bag and laid it out on the living room floor. Before Hinata could ask, Kankuro announced, "Breakfast is ready, ladies." Neji took Hinata's hand and sat her down. "Breakfast is the king of meals. Let's eat." Hinata blinked. Kankuro sighed at the overwhelmed Hinata. "Really, try it this. Give it your best shot." Hinata dug into her breakfast. I don't think Kankuro was talking about his skills. Neji sighed with obvious frustration. "You've tolerated us, you've humored us, but you're stubbornly convinced that you're not pretty and that you're not going to find a man who will fall in love with you. You're just hiding behind that, just one of the guy's facade." "Wait a minute, I'm not hiding, Neji. Okay, maybe I could be a little braver in the social arena. But frankly, I'm happy with my life as it is. I don't need a date. I don't need to change my appearance. Why can't people be happy with the way I am?" Neji sighed again. "Someday, a man is going to love you just for who you are, honey. I promise that. But if you're so happy with your life, why were you so sad at Temari's wedding?" His eyes bore into Hinata like a psychic's. "And don't tell me it was your hangover. We'd leave you alone if we knew you were really happy," Kankuro said, giving her a quick, hard hug. "But we're not letting you just settle for a life of mediocrity without a fight. If you'd let that outer beauty catch up with your inner beauty, I knew you'd find the right person for you. I just know it. Beauty. Me." Hinata's voice cracked. Neji sighed yet again. "First, we'll work on the body." He lifted the bowl in front of Hinata and then grabbed a handful of oatmeal mixture. Hinata looked at the lump of oatmeal disgustingly, but was silenced as Neji mercilessly glopped the thick, pasty stuff on her face. She shut her eyes and faced the inevitable. "Sit still. This is just the beginning. I've got a hair appointment for you at 12, and get ready for a full afternoon of shopping. Gaara will be coming. He's delighted to give feedback from a guy's point of view." Neji continued to burble on happily as he outlined her grand scheme for Hinata's transformation. Kankuro tinkered with dishes and cutlery. There was no way she could turn down their help. This were her 3 plus Temari oldest friends, never mind that Neji was her cousin brother. They were friends who had made room for her at holidays, friends who had clapped and cheered at the college graduation her mother had missed, dying 2 years earlier of cancer. She loved them enough to put up with their pushing, prodding and relentless mothering. She'd die for them if they asked. Hinata, have you heard a word I've said? Hinata jolted out of her thoughts. What? Kankuro chuckled. Neji's been outlining your beauty agenda. I'm sure this is overwhelming to you right now, but I know you. You're going to work harder at this than at anything in your life. What in the world gave you that impression? Hinata asked, puzzled. That bet, Kankuro said. Neji gurgled happily, yes. When you shook hands, I could have kissed him. Hinata and Kankuro narrowed their eyes for different reasons. Yohu, what's this I'm hearing of kissing? Naruto's voice called from the front door. Neji let out a startled little yip. Hinata, on the other hand, made a break for the bathroom, but slipped. She sprawled on the floor, face down and bottom up. Well, Naruto drawled, grating on every single one of Hinata's nerves. There's a sight you don't see every day. And thank God for that, Hinata muttered, getting up slowly. Don't you knock. And what are you doing here so early in the morning, anyway? In all the years I've known you, I've never knocked if your door is open, he said, shrugging. You seem particularly grumpy this morning. Could it be because our good friend Neji here and my brother got you up early, or because they spackled your face? All three glared at him, and he laughed. Sorry, I guess it's a girl thing. It's more like a bet thing, Neji snapped. Bet. Naruto pretended to mull over. I seem to remember something about that. 1 grand, 1 month, and from the looks of it, a whole lot of oatmeal. Naruto winked at Hinata. Think you'll be able to wash all that off by Thursday? We've got one serious poker night going on at my house, and I don't want you covering your famous poker face with that goop. You'll scare the guys. Oh no you don't, Neji cut in, frowning at Naruto before turning back to Hinata. From here and out, Thursdays through Sundays are designated date nights. You're booked. Hinata took a deep breath. Okay, coach. The teasing look washed off Naruto's face. Okay. His blue eyes widened. Just like that, you'd ditch poker night to wait for some guy. No, Hinata corrected him sweetly. I'm ditching poker night to go out with some guy. Naruto scowled. You can't be serious about this. Besides, you don't really want to find Mr. Right. You wouldn't know what to do with him if you found him. You're not like those guide women at all. His voice rang with certainty. Think about it. You, trying to snare some unsuspecting man and drag him home by hair. Actually, I was planning on just wearing something see-through at my front door and luring the in, Hinata snapped back, irritated by his amusement. Naruto growled, then took a deep breath, apparently deciding to try a different approach. There's nothing wrong with the way you are, and you shouldn't let them try to change you, he said, his voice more serious. I thought you liked your life the way it was. What's so wrong about hanging out with us guys, anyway? We never hassle you about changing. We don't care what you look like. Translation. She could be the ugliest mud beast to walk the face of the earth, but she'd always be there, Sonny. So, you dress grubby, he continued. Neji was going to interrupt, but Kankuro whispered something in his ear and wrapped his strong arms around his waist. They left the room. Before that foot becomes permanently lodged in your throat, stop trying to convince me. My mind's made up. I'm going through with this bet. This was not the way to convince him to help her, she realized. But the way he was acting, she didn't want his help. He wasn't pitying her exactly, but he was excusing her, somehow. He deserved a little payback. He'd definitely think twice before he used the term grubby again. I may not look much now, Naruto, Hinata said, with anger-induced bravado, but I swear I'm going to look like the goddess of love when you're signing that check. Better watch that mud pack, Venus, he countered, leaning closer to her, a wicked grin on his face. I hate to tell you, but you've got a terracotta coating your neck. And there's a cozy scoop of oatmeal between your. He started laughing too hard to speak, cutting off his sentence, raising a finger to point. Hinata saw red. Snatching up one of the pillows from her overstuffed couch, she side-armed it at him, catching him straight in his chuckling mouth. He grabbed the plastic bowl as a shield as she pelted him with the rest of her ammunition. Still steaming, she glanced around for something else to throw. Then she noticed the unholy gleam in Naruto's eyes as he put the bowl full of oatmeal down. She felt a brief pang of panic as she realized his intentions. Naru, she protested, holding a hand up. Now, let's not be hasty here. I'm your best friend. He picked up an armful of pillows and grinned. Na-a-a-ru. She gave one last, desperate cry as he began to bombard her. He was blocking off the entrance to both her room and the bathroom, and his aim was wickedly on target. With a scream, she bolted toward her front hallway, with Naruto in full pursuit. Trapped, she threw open her front door and ran out, his deep, rolling laughter dogging her every step. She made a dash for the side of the house. She hoped the garden hose was out so she could give him a nice cold blast, when instead she ran smack into a broad muscular chest. Oof, she uttered, landing on soft grass of the side yard with a thump. Oops, sorry, a deep male voice intoned, with an undercurrent of amusement. Are you all right? Hinata looked up. A gorgeous male specimen of jet black hair was staring down at her. His bare, chiseled chest emerged from what looked like a low-slung pair of dockers. She gaped, horrified. Are you all right, miss? Gorgeous guy repeated, looking less amused now and more worried. He also looked vaguely familiar. She shook off the thought. I didn't mean to knock you over, he apologized. He offered her a hand to tug her up. She stared at it. Of all days for this sort of thing to happen to her, why today, when she looked like this? Naruto suddenly emerged, pillows in each hand, yelling like a Comanche. He stopped, mid-war cry, as he noticed a new participant and saw Hinata on the ground. What happened? Naruto asked, quickly dropping the pillows and falling to his knees by Hinata's side. Sonny, are you all right? She grimaced at him. Did she look all right? Gorgeous guy cleared his throat. I'm sorry. She was running around the house, and I didn't know she was coming, and we bumped into each other. I think maybe she got the wind knocked out of her. Hinata groaned and pushed herself up to her feet, glad that at least the oatmeal covered her blush. No, I'm fine, she murmured. Of course I'm fine. Gorgeous guy moves in next door to me, and I run at him like a stamping wild beast. I guess I should have been more careful of where I was going, but I didn't know anyone lived here. Gorgeous guy smiled, dimples pitting his cheeks. No problem. I just moved in. My brother owns this place, but he's subletting it to me for a while. I've always liked Manhattan Beach. It's fun. He winked at her, a gesture that reminded her of Naruto. Always something crazy going on. This isn't what you think, she protested weakly. Naruto was obviously enjoying the predicament she'd landed in. What, exactly, do you think this was? You, she began, only to be stopped by Gorgeous Guy's laugh. Do you two live next door, then? Gorgeous Guy glanced curiously at her house. I live there, Hinata answered, giving Naruto a quick glare. This comedian over here doesn't. He just stopped by to make my life miserable. Oh, Gorgeous Guy said slowly, looking back at her. I thought you two were married. Us. Hinata's eyebrow jumped up, causing cracking oatmeal to sprinkle her eyes. She blinked hard. Not just no, but hell no, Naruto said. Marriage is miserable enough by itself. Why would I compound it by marrying her? This time, she aimed a kick at him. He dodged it, still grinning. Oh, Gorgeous Guy said, smiling broadly. He offered his hand to her. Then let's get introduced. I'm Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke, Society's magazine's most eligible bachelor in America. She laughed giddily. Sure you are. And I'm Glinda, the good witch of the north. He laughed, a deep, rough laugh that appealed. When he smiled, he did sort of resemble Uchiha Sasuke, Hinata noted. Well, Glinda, you can just call me Sasuke. Hi, Sasuke, Naruto said, stepping slightly in front of Hinata and putting his hand out. Sasuke had to release Hinata's hand to shake Naruto's. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. I'm Hyuga Hinata, Hinata added, nudging Naruto a little. He didn't budge. Hi, Hinata, Sasuke said, smiling. He added a nod to Naruto. Hinata smirked when Naruto finally moved aside a little. Naruto smiled back at her, too smugly for her peace of mind. His gaze shifted downward a little, and his smile widened, amusement dancing in his eyes. She tried to track his line of vision. What's so funny? Abruptly, she remembered the comment that had started all of this. She had oatmeal between our what? Well, welcome to the neighborhood, Sasuke, she said quickly. Hoping that she wasn't nestling cereal between her. Hinata smiled sheepishly and added, I've got to slip into something less, edible. Sasuke smiled back, this time with a hint of heat. Oh, don't bother on my account. She paused for a moment. That sounded like a come on. Shaking her head, Hinata laughed, waved and walked back up towards her house. Of course it wasn't a come on. Gorgeous guy hitting on oatmeal mud girl. Naruto trailed behind her, pillows in hand, but with no obvious intentions of throwing them, thankfully. They walked into the house together. Neji waited for them in the living room, a horrified expression on his face. I can't believe you just did that, Neji said, his fingers tugging at the ends of his brown hair. He'd obviously been spying from the bedroom window. Apparently, Kankuro and Neji had decided the scene below was much more enticing than their making out session. Where's Kankuro? Hinata asked. In the shower, Neji replied absent-mindedly. What's he doing in there? What else? Showering, of course. Naruto snapped. I didn't ask you. Hinata fired a comment back. So, who's gorgeous? Neji asked, his steely gaze fixed on Hinata. Before Hinata could answer, Naruto said sourly, he's Uchiha Sasuke. Neji's eyes bugged. No way. Naruto plunked down on the couch. And he was hitting on Hinata. No way. Neji threw a quick hug around Hinata's shoulders and danced with her a cappella. Although there would be a stain later on his white blouse, Neji didn't care at the moment. His cousin's sister was finally blossoming. Wait a minute, he hit on you. Looking like, that. Coated in oatmeal and mud, you mean? Hinata gave an exasperated sigh. He couldn't take his eyes off me. I'm literally like no other woman he's ever seen before, or even hopes to see again, I'm sure. She released Neji's hold on her. Naruto's just pulling your leg, Neji. Uchiha Sasuke wouldn't be interested in me in a million years, and besides, I'm not even convinced that gorgeous guy really was Uchiha Sasuke. Either way, that guy was not coming on to me. Gorgeous guy, Naruto repeated, frowning. What do you mean, he wasn't Uchiha Sasuke? Neji persisted. He wasn't that good looking, Naruto interrupted, standing up. Are you interested in him or something? Because I think he's a little out of your league, Sonny. I mean, I know you're taking this bet seriously and all, but you don't want to rush into anything. Right. That does it. Hinata literally shoved Naruto out her doorway and turned back to tell Neji. I'll see you later at the hairdresser's. But before you go, could you please take Kankuro with you? By Thursday, Naruto was sick of being put off for Hinata's makeover agenda. She wouldn't see him, Carly even had time to talk to him. Now he had only one goal, getting her to give up this stupid bet, for her own good. He pulled his sleek black Mustang convertible into the parking lot of Daimyo Design, jetting into the nearest parking space. I'm such an idiot, he muttered under his breath, retrieving the bouquet of white roses he'd gotten for her. Hinata was a sucker for flowers. 24 red roses had saved his butt when he'd accidentally cracked her car's back window last year with a practical joke, he remembered with a smile. Somehow, he doubted he'd get off the hook that easily this time. Once he and Hinata shook hands on a bet, she was like a ton of cement, hard, completely set and impossible to budge. What if she did meet some guy, like the jerk she dated in design school? The guy had turned into a psychotic Pygmalion, trying to turn Hinata in as his final project. Naruto had graduated himself and was looking forward to spending more time with Hinata. They hadn't been close when he was in high school, but when he moved away to college on the East Coast, he realized he missed the tomboy brat who lived around the corner. But instead, she'd spent all of her time with her boyfriend until the jerk dumped her, and she'd wept on Naruto's shoulder and told him his story she couldn't tell Neji, Kankuro, Temari and Hanabi, how the guy had been trying to change her, how he'd said he'd given up because the project was only as good as the materials, and you're not good enough. She then made Naruto promise not to kill the guy, a promise Naruto still regretted. If Hinata went all out on this crazy bet, who knew what sort of lunatic she'd hook up with, just to show him she could. And if she got married, where would that put me in her life? Say, came a familiar female voice from the front door. Are you going to come in, or are you going to loiter for the rest of the afternoon by our front door? Huh. Naruto was startled out of his thoughts. What? Hanabi, the receptionist at Daimyo Design, smiled at him as she held the door open. Those flowers for me, handsome. He smiled back. No, they're a peace offering for Hinata. Is she in? She sure is. Hanabi had a broad smile on her face. Couldn't get away from my sister, Decided not to answer, Naruto hurried down the hallway to a door. Taking a deep breath, he courageously slapped on a big smile before throwing the door open and entering, flowers first. He froze. Hinata barely glanced up, smiling tiredly. Hey there. Come on in. I just need to finish up this sketch, this client is a nightmare. I've been working like a demon all morning. He felt like somebody had punched him in the stomach. Sure, Naruto said slowly, wishing he could stop staring. You look good. Whatever he was expecting, it wasn't this. She looked strange, all right. Strangely alluring, strangely striking. Strangely beautiful. Her straggly long hair had been cut to her shoulders, falling in graceful waves. Something else was differently about it, he noted. It was darker, more dark blueberries or beryl, maybe. She wore it pushed back a little, showing off that swan neck of hers. It suited those high cheekbones nicely. Naruto blinked. When the hell did he notice she had high cheekbones? Her beautiful lavender eyes were huge, glowing with life. Naruto. Hello Naru. Her smile was shy and self-conscious. That bad, huh? It was the smile that snapped him out of it. No matter what she looked like, that smile was pure Hinata, that little softness that took the sting out of her sharpest, hippiest remark. Nah, he said, regaining his equilibrium. I was just mentally balancing my checkbook to see if I could clear $1,000, or if I'd have to raid my savings. She laughed, showing off a rosy little blush that added life to her clear porcelain complexion. If this kept up, he thought desperately, he'd start writing a sonnet about her. He thrust out the flowers almost aggressively. For you, he muttered. The blush deepened. Hinata was wearing some kind of dusty rose lipstick, and her lips looked full and generous as they curved into a delighted smile. I didn't get anything for you, she joked, her voice low and husky. Her voice had always been like that, hadn't it? So why did his pulse suddenly rev up like an engine at the Indy 500? Then, she got up and took a vase off of the tall bookcase behind her work table. He thought he'd been shocked. Now he was beyond shocked. He felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer to his chest as he tried without success to take a breath. She wasn't wearing her usual baggy jeans. Instead, she wore a short flannel sundress in a fragile pastel pink that floated like a cloud around her body. The neck scooped to reveal the gentle swell of her beasts. And she was wearing strappy white sandals. With heels. He wasn't sure what weird equation of physics made heels do what they did to women's legs, but they were acting in overdrive on Hinata's. Her legs were long and luscious, just the way he liked. This is Hinata you're ogling. The thought brought him up short. So, what brought this on, Naruto? What do you think? One of her finely arched eyebrows quirked up. Let's see. Because you don't think I have a prayer of doing anything but making a fool of myself with this bet. I never said that, he interrupted. I just don't want you to get hurt. Translation: You think I'm going to get hurt because I'm not the sort of women men go bonkers over. Until today, he thought. I never thought you were ugly, he said instead, more sharply than he'd intended. Oh, really? Then what did you think? Before Naruto could reply, more heatedly than before, the phone rang. Hinata sighed and snatched up the receiver. Yes. Naruto took a deep breath. Glinda, good witch of the north. Her eyes widened, bewildered, then closed. Oh, my god. Hi. Yes, I'm sorry. This is Hyuga Hinata. I didn't mean to snap like that, I'm just in the middle of something. Is this Sasuke? Any thought of Naruto refining the answer he's going to give Hinata disappeared. Uchiha Sasuke. What was he doing, calling Hinata here? And what did he want? Naruto stopped himself, mid-thought. Oh, he could guess what good ol' Sasuke wanted, all right. Hi, Sasuke. Yes, I've recovered fully from this weekend. You're a brave man, not to run off screaming at the sight of me. I'm sure I was something to see. She chuckled half-heartedly. What? Oh that. She laughed again and Naruto saw a deep red blush creep across her face. You weren't supposed to notice that blop of oatmeal there. Naruto saw purple. Suddenly, he felt the overwhelming urge to hit something, preferably Sasuke. That leech. So, you want a local person's advice on what the hot spots are in Manhattan Beach, huh? Well, I guess I could help you a little. I know several excellent restaurants, a ton of sports bars and a few dance clubs, what? Naruto suppressed the urge to hit the speaker button and hear what was causing the shocked look on her face. I'm, not sure. Today's Thursday, right? No, I don't have any other plans tonight. Naruto clenched his fist. The man was railroading Hinata into a date. The nerve of the guy. What? Your other line. Sure. I can hold, Hinata said. She looked over at Naruto, covering the mouthpiece. It's Sasuke. I'm holding. Breathlessly, Naruto growled. You're not thinking of going out with that character, are you? Well, I hadn't, she started, then stopped, her eyes flashing. Why shouldn't I? He could be an axe murderer for all you know. He's Uchiha Sasuke, Hinata exclaimed. At this point, he's getting so famous he's lucky to go to the bathroom in privacy, much less kill anyone. My point exactly, yelled Naruto, then stopped. No, that wasn't his point at all. Normally, he had a lot more logic on his side, but his anger had seriously shorted out the better part of his brain. Why would you want to go out with some celebrity freak show otherwise? Think about it. Hinata's eyes narrowed, like shards of hazel ice. Or, MRE to the point, why would he want to go out with me? Naruto grimaced. Don't go there, Hinata. I swear. Sasuke. Hi. Her voice rang with an edge of steel. I'd love to go out to dinner with you tonight. I think we should try the Blue Moon, over on Manhattan Beach Boulevard. It's sort of nouveau Italian, and the food is terrific. How does 7 sound? After she hung up, Naruto growled and asked pugnaciously, how did he get your work number? I don't have to answer you. Now, please go. I think this conversation has gone about as far as it can go. We're not finished, Naruto warned. He opened the door with full force only to see Hanabi staring up at him with a mischievous twinkle in her eyes. Wipe that stupid smirk off your face. Naruto couldn't resist slamming the door, an action that caused several heads to pop up like gophers over the low cubicle walls in the main room. He scowled at them and they disappeared rapidly. How dare he shut the door so rudely at your face? Hinata yanked the doorknob open to receive Hanabi in. Hanabi clicked her tongue. No worries, sis. Men in a jealous rage, I get it. She waved her hand dismissing the previous sting from Naruto's comment. Besides, let's talk about the date tonight. You were eavesdropping, Hinata said, horrified. Hey, being the receptionist has its perks. I could probably blackmail the whole company for all I care. Her skyscraper heels clacked as she advanced towards Hinata. She began to self-consciously compare her old look to Hanabi's, where Hanabi's brown tresses were carefully coiffed, Her own unruly barrel waves were pulled haphazardly in a scrunchy white elastic band, to stay out of her way while she worked. She always looked porcelain doll perfect. Even by the end of the day. Hi, Neji. Hanabi cooed through her Nokia N80. I'm not calling from the zoo. She gripped the phone. I do not sound like a bird. Hanabi heaved a long sigh and calmly continued, shut up and listen. Our Hinata is going on a date with Uchiha Sasuke. A pitchy squeal came blaring out from Hanabi's cell phone. Hinata groaned. Hanabi hung up. Neji wants all of us to meet at your house A.S.A.P. Hanabi dragged Hinata to the car park. Protesting, what about work? Was met with a cool reply laden with plenty of suspicious mystery. Well, Mr. Daimyo owed me one, dear sis. Don't need to know much of it. Now, scoot over. I'm driving. Hinata stapled her seatbelt tight. For all the days I've coached you, what would you be wearing? Neji demanded as his hands stood akimbo on his hip bones. White silk blouse, pinstriped charcoal trousers, low heels, black blazer. Hanabi sighed and rolled her eyes. Neji muttered she doesn't get it. Are you going on a date or an interview? The remark hung in the air until Neji broke the silence by gently prodding Hinata, why don't you wear one of your new dresses? Well, A. I wore one of them to work today, B. It's going to be chilly tonight, and C. I don't want to wear anything that screams, take me, I'm yours. To Sasuke, who probably has MRE scantily clad groupies than the Rolling Stones. Neji and Hanabi sighed in frustration. Voicing out, groupies, and, Sasuke gives Brad Pitt a run for his money, Hinata's bundle of nerves surfaced. Did you have something constructive to tell me, or are you just trying to give me an ulcer? She yanked off the dress she wore for work impatiently. Relax, honey. Breathe, Neji said soothingly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Easy for you to say. You're not having dinner with the most eligible man in America. Hinata took a deep breath. Hanabi rummaged in her closet. Wear something classy and timeless. The blue moon is not exactly a dime. I know that, snapped Hinata. Shush, Neji told Hanabi and comforted Hinata. I feel like an idiot, Neji. My palms are sweating, and my heart's beating like a jackhammer. Sounds like love, Hanabi suggested in a sing-song tone. Sounds like terror, Hinata retorted in the same tone. Neji just gave Hinata a perceptible glance. After dressing and applying some makeup, it's a date for Christ's sakes. Neji got rather tired of Hinata's debate between au natural and artificial coloring. The doorbell rang. All of the three girls, Neji's a she-man, jumped. Oh no, it's him, Hinata breathed shortly. Remember to take a condom, Neji advised. Hanabi had to keep from laughing as Hinata was forced to greet the most eligible bachelor at the door with Neji sneakily stuffing a silvery pack into her purse before running away to hide in her bedroom. Hinata turned bright pink, hoping that Sasuke did not see her cousin brother's antics. She curved her frozen smile up more naturally and directed it to gorgeous guy. Hi, Sasuke. She took a good look at him. He was wearing a pair of black chinos and dark green cable knit sweater. Hi, he smiled back. I barely recognized you. You're telling me, she said with feeling, grabbing a light jacket and her purse. I barely recognize myself these days. When she turned back to face him, he was staring at her strangely. Why? What? The only time I've seen you, I didn't get a good look at your face, he explained, his smile broadening but his eyes still puzzled. So it's a surprise to me. But I'm sure you've seen your own face without oatmeal before. Hinata blushed. Nothing like starting the evening off feeling stupid. She laughed self-deprecatingly. Well, the oatmeal is doing wonders. I'm a completely new person, which is why I have trouble recognizing myself. Somehow, that sounded lamer out loud than it did in her head. Really? He gave her a complete once-over. What did you look like before? I used to be a 6-foot-tall Scandinavian, for one thing, smirking playfully. He laughed. Hinata grinned weakly. Oh God, let me survive tonight. Half an hour later, Hinata was still surviving. Barely. She had managed to order without embarrassing herself, and there had only been 3 uncomfortable pauses. However, she had managed to knock over her water twice, and had come perilously close to setting her menu on fire with the romantic tea light candle in the center of the table. Sorry, she said, trying to smile. His eyes were kind, but she felt sure it was a sort of, taking pity on the handicapped, smile. I'm not usually this clumsy. At the risk of sounding immodest, I've been around people who got nerves around me. He shrugged. You get used to it. Hinata frowned. Well, you are gorgeous. I guess I figured other people must get pretty blasé about that after a while. They both blinked at what she said. Sasuke felt secretly pleased at her comment. Thus, Hinata stammered and almost knocked over her 3rd glass of water that night. I'm sorry, that wasn't, oh, God. That sounded really stupid, didn't it? Actually, that was really cute. He laughed. I meant that people usually get nervous about the money thing. Of course, there is that stupid, eligible bachelor, thing. I remember reading about that, Hinata said, remembering Neji pinning a picture of him in her mobile for 2 months. Ever since that went into print, I've had women literally tongue-tied when I wind up going to dinner with them. Or else chatting their head off trying to convince me they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. Ick. Hinata rolled her eyes, laughing. No problems here. I'm definitely not the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't know, a playful spark in his eyes and a hint of laughter in his voice. It's really easy to talk to you and you're disarmingly honest, Hinata. His eyes glinted with mischief. Or is it Sunny? I heard that guy, what was his name, calling you that. Oh, she said, feeling a blush head her cheeks yet again. That. My friend Naruto. He just calls me that nickname to get me out of my shy shell. Sasuke smiled warmly. Well, you're definitely very confident tonight, even cracking a few jokes that made me laugh. You're very pleasant. The sunny part fits well enough. Hinata smiled, flustered, uncertain of what to do next. It was just a simple compliment, but she wasn't sure how to react. She fell silent, and he waited expectantly. She wished she had anything, absolutely anything, to talk about. Then, she saw him. Naruto sauntered in with a sly smile. He didn't look at her. He was instead riveted on his dining companion for the evening. The woman was perhaps 5 feet 10 inches with platinum blonde hair and a huge chest that didn't bob when she walked. It was easy to tell, too, in that painted-on dress she was almost wearing. The woman was draped over Naruto like a shawl. Hinata felt her blood pressure rise a little. Speak of the devil, Sasuke said. Isn't that your friend? It would appear to be, she said tightly. I don't know the woman though. She doesn't seem to be the sort of person one would forget, Sasuke said with a little cough, looking at the woman skeptically. Hinata immediately graced Sasuke with a radiant smile. Their dinner arrived as Naruto and the walking bust were seated at a table not far from them, behind Sasuke. Unfortunately, they were in Hinata's immediate line of vision. She focused on Sasuke's face and tried not to let her eyes wander to the table where the woman was making playful, teasing gestures with those French manicured nails of hers. Naruto just smiled as the woman pawed him. Something wrong? Sasuke asked, frowning with concern. Oh, nothing, Hinata muttered, looking down at her plate. Naruto leaned forward to catch what his date was saying after they ordered, and Hinata watched as the woman took an obvious nibble at his ear. Then, Naruto looked directly at Hinata and gave her a slow, deliberate wink. Hinata's breath caught her throat as something clicked in her mind. That bum. It was a setup. She might have guessed. He was showing her the type of woman the guide worked for. The moves, the looks, the surreptitious nibbles. He was rubbing Hinata's face in the fact that there was no way she could handle this date with Sasuke. She was outclassed, outmaneuvered and hopelessly out of her league. She turned to Sasuke, her heart racing with anger. Hinata took a long, slow sip of her water, letting the icy liquid clam her down a little. You're a woman. Be a woman. It's now or never. Hinata hadn't studied that little magazine for nothing. She let the straw trail on her lower lip suggestively before putting her drink down. I love this restaurant, she said, her voice deliberately husky. Sasuke's eyes widened, and the forkful of rice he's begun to eat remained suspended in midair. Really? MMHMM. She smiled, consciously taking a deep breath high up her chest. It's one of my favorite places in Manhattan Beach. It's quiet, it has this great romantic atmosphere, and the food, she smiled, picking up a forkful of her own risotto and tasting it. The delicate blend of parmesan and the earthy taste of mushroom blended perfectly with the light, crisp asparagus. She didn't have to play up the moan of satisfaction. Well, obviously the food is heavenly. Sasuke was staring at her as if he'd never seen her before. She beat down the instinct to creep back into her shell. He would react in one or two ways. Either he'd think she was absolutely insane, or he'd find it attractive and sensual, just as the magazine claimed. His eyes suddenly glowed, a deep, mesmerizing onyx. She'd only seen that sort of look directed at other people, like Hanabi or Neji, but she knew what it meant. Full steam ahead. Now that it was directed at her, she wasn't entirely sure what to do with it. She tried for a sexy smile, and his answering grin was uncomfortably intense. Hinata then glanced down at Sasuke's plate, poached salmon in a wine sauce. Could I have a taste of that? She murmured, looking at him hesitantly. I've never tried that dish before. Sasuke smiled, and he picked up a morsel on his fork, holding it out to her. Hinata's eyes widened. She'd meant could he put it on her plate. She'd never really eaten off another mon's fork before, unless you counted Naruto's, which obviously he didn't. The act seemed too intimate, and she started to protest. One glance at Naruto stopped the protest in her throat. Naruto was staring at Hinata again, ignoring the lettuce his date was offering. Amazingly enough, he actually had the nerve to look disapproving. With a slow smile, Hinata leaned forward, taking the salmon neatly off the fork in one small bite. The salmon was incredible, she noted, and she obligingly let out a long sigh. God, if I could find that chef, I'd marry him, Hinata said happily, her eyes half-lidded. Sasuke leaned over and took her hand, surprising her out of her feelings of triumph. How about if I just promised to take you here every night? Hinata laughed nervously, wondering if she should tug her hand away without seemingly rude. Sasuke waited a minute, then stroked the back of her hand gently before bringing his own hand back to his side of the table. Hinata suppressed a sigh of relief and made a concentrated effort to focus on him, rather than the table across the room. She held her end pretty well, she thought, as they discussed recent movies and books. She concluded that Sasuke was Mr. Nice Guy, as well as good-looking. She kept the guide stuff to a minimum, though. Nice or not, Sasuke definitely made her nervous. Everything looks so good, Sasuke said, glancing over her. What would you recommend? She gave the dessert cart a cursory glance. The chocolate raspberry decadence sundae, she said immediately. That's what I'd get, but I'm not really that hungry. I always share it with. She stopped, before she could say with Naruto. He smiled at her, that sexy smile that was beginning to irritate her. Then, we'll share, okay. She nodded. Oh Naruto darling, I shouldn't. Really. Can't you see this dress? I'm supposed to stick to salads. Hinata glanced over at Naruto's table, the dessert cart's next stop. His date was making a lot of noise, attracting most of the patron's glances and showing off that bionic woman body of hers. Hinata rolled her eyes. Don't worry, Hinata heard Naruto say over the woman squealing. We can split it. Hinata's face flushed, red. Hinata. Sasuke asked tentatively. Are you okay? Hinata brought her attention back to Sasuke, immediately feeling guilty. I'm sorry, Sasuke. I've had a lot on my mind lately. He nodded, and it seemed as if he really understood. Wanna talk about it? Not really. You sure? He smiled and took her hand again, without any sexy stares or smiles, just friendly. This time, she let him. His hand was warm and comforting. I'm a good listener. He continued as he felt Hinata giving him a squeeze in which to assure him everything's fine. You were doing fine, but I did notice you were kind of distracted. Could you tell me one thing, though? She smiled wearily. Sure. What? He glanced over his shoulder, leaned forward and asked quietly, why are you so obsessed with that big-chested woman? Hinata's eyes popped wide open. Oh, my God. Not that she isn't eye-catching, but you've been sending looks over to that table that could skewer things. Hinata put her head down on their joined hands, feeling blood rush to her face. Sasuke nudged her head up with the back of his hand, forcing her eyes to meet his. Come on. It's that guy, isn't it? Your friend Naruto. No, it's not like that, she muttered, looking desperately in his eyes for understanding. You see, well, I've known Naruto since I was 8. He's my best friend. But he, along with about all of the male population of Los Angeles, thinks I'm about as sexy as a nature documentary. And being my best friend, he had no real compunction about letting me know that. Her voice broke and she shut up quickly, before she did something even more humiliating. Like crying. I've seen some pretty racy nature documentaries, Sasuke said, causing Hinata to smile and fend off the tears she felt hovering. And if this guy, or any of the other guys in this city, thinks that you're not absolutely gorgeous, then they're all crazy. You, lady, are one of the prettiest women I've ever seen. Hinata smiled. I like my legs even. I like your legs, too, Sasuke said, wriggling his eyebrows, causing her to laugh. So, what are our friends doing now? He whispered, leaning over the table, his face set in melodramatic look of spy-like secretiveness. Hinata sent over a similar dramatic glance. She's eating ice cream off of a spoon. He's feeding her, she reported. Hinata smiled, perfectly at ease with Sasuke for the first time all night. His answering smile was mischievous, and she chuckled. Suddenly, she and Sasuke were putting on a display that would have put 9.5 weeks, It's a Movie starring Sandra Bullock and Hugh Grant, to shame. He fed her ice cream, and she devoured outrageously, darting her tongue out, licking her lips seductively. She fed him spoonfuls, cooing ridiculous names like Honey Bunny and Pumpkin Blossom between bites. It was hysterically funny, especially since no one would expect this kind of behavior from her. Heck, she was surprising herself. It was apparently doing the trick, too. She not only had Naruto's attention, she had drawn the attention of several other tables. It was all she could do not to burst out laughing. She glanced over to study Naruto's response and was shocked out of her merry state. His date had put aside the spoon and had now scooted her chair closer to Naruto, latching on his neck like a vampire with her big fat lips. His eyes were half closed, like a bored cat's. He barely gave Hinata a cursory glance as he continued to calmly eat his ice cream. Hinata felt angry, and challenged at the gauntlet Naruto had thrown down. She took one last look at the dish she and Sasuke had just demolished. The only thing left was the long-stemmed cherry they'd put aside. Do you want that cherry? She asked, glancing at Sasuke. If you want it, it's yours, Sasuke said, rubbing his stomach and laughing. I'm going to have a huge stomachache tonight, but it was worth it. I haven't had this much fun in ages. You think that's something, she muttered, picking up the cherry and licking it. Watch this. Hinata bit down the cherry fiercely, ripping it off the stem and slowly chewed it, dribbling a little juice down the corner of her mouth. Bravo, Sasuke said, clapping lightly, but she stopped him with a curt hand motion. Not yet, she said, holding the stem at eye length. This is the good part. Watch carefully. With a quick, succinct motion, she sucked the cherry stem in. Her face remained stock still for a moment, as she moved her tongue in a flurry of hidden activity. Slowly, she smiled, then put her fingers to her lips. With one graceful pull, she produced the cherry stem, only now it was tied into a square knot. She was gratified by his look of shock. Party trick, she murmured, shrugging. Sasuke's jaw dropped. I feel like I need a cigarette, and I don't even smoke. Applause exploded around her, and Hinata glanced up. 2 tables of men in business suits were clapping wildly, one man even standing up. You go, girl. Wolf whistles emerged from different areas. She even caught several pops of flashbulb. Torn between running out of the building and hiding under the table, a gesture that surely would have been misinterpreted, Hinata stood up and curtsied graciously, her face aflame. The guide didn't have a chapter on this one, she reflected. How precisely did one look sexy while making a fool of oneself? Then, she looked over at Naruto's table. Naruto was choking on his ice cream. The busty blonde was hitting him on the back, hard. He only stared at Hinata, his eyes bulging in shock. Hinata burst in a radiant smile. With a flirty little flounce, she turned to Sasuke. Well, I guess my work here is done, she murmured, in her best superhero voice. You ready to go? That was too funny. Hinata crowed, feeling drunk as Sasuke walked her home. I think you've pretty much proved you're to the businessmen of South Bay, Sasuke agreed, ambling next to her. You sure convinced me. Hinata sighed. I can't thank you enough, Sasuke. Anytime. He tugged a lock of her hair gently. It was my pleasure. Hinata stopped. No, really. I didn't realize how much it hurt when Naruto said what he did. I know he's not trying to be hurtful, but sometimes honesty is worse, you know. He wasn't being honest, Sasuke muttered, he was being mistaken. Why did he say it anyway? I think you're very pretty. Sasuke unconsciously blurted out and was very surprised to see Hinata the floss pink creeping to Hinata's cheeks. Oh, he didn't even know. If you're not a woman, what are you? Sasuke joked. What else would you be, a poodle? Hinata remembered Naruto's hooting remark over the guide. Well, Naruto thinks I'm just like his guy friends. We watch football together, we watch movies together. He's attempted to teach me to surf, but I'm hopeless, she explained, starting to walk again. He was with me when my mother died. I was with him when he got his MBA, a business degree. He's my best friend, Sasuke. He wouldn't lie to me. Maybe he just can't handle the truth, Sasuke mused. What truth can't he handle? Hinata frowned. Sasuke smiled. Why don't you keep thinking about it, and let me know what you come up with? Within minutes, they were at their street. Stopping in front of the trellis over the gate to her walkway, Hinata paused, wondering what to do next. She liked Sasuke, but she didn't want to invite him in. Well, she did sort of want to invite him in, but only to talk, and from the way their conversation was running, they'd only talk about Naruto. Even for a casual date, that seemed tacky. Well, I guess this is my stop, she said, shifting her weight nervously from foot to foot. Thanks for taking me out tonight, Sasuke. We'll have to do it again sometime, he said, his grin like summer lightning. This is usually the good night kiss part. Hinata smiled weakly, taking a half step back. She thought of something fast. Would you believe that I don't kiss on first dates? Would you believe that's the first time I've heard it outside of a movie? Sasuke laughed. Hinata sighed in relief as he didn't come any closer, but what he said next threw her off guard. I like you, Hyuga Hinata. Reacting naturally, she grinned back. I like you, too, Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke lowered his eyes when she said that, but then lifted them to meet with hers, full of sparkle and hope. Say, I have an idea. What are you doing on Saturday? Nothing. Why? There's a bi-party, formal dress thing over Century City. It'll probably be a crashing bore, but I think I'd have a lot more fun if you were there. Will you come with me? Hinata felt her stomach constrict. Formal dress. As in, really fancy. He nodded, and his eyes were pleading. I don't know a lot of girls out here. I'm out from New York for only a couple of months. It would be a huge favor if you'd come. Please. Hinata sighed. He'd been such a great sport about the dinner. It seemed to be the least she could do. All right, Sasuke. Excellent. He gave her a broad grin. I'll pick you up Saturday at 7 p.m. See you then. Sasuke kissed her cheek quickly, then whistled his way down to his front gate. Hinata turned to her own walkway, stepping up to her front door and unlocking it. She walked into her empty house, shutting the door behind her. Sasuke was warm, funny, gentle and nice. He was, as most magazines claimed, everything a woman would want in a man. So why didn't her heart race when he talked to her? Why wasn't she getting all gooey and weak in the knees when he flashed that gorgeous smile? Maybe there was something wrong with her. Hinata sighed, flopping on her bed, picking up her transparent cordless phone and dialed blindly, completely by reflex. Hello, she heard Naruto's voice say darkly over the crackle of a cellular phone. She froze and hung up. To her surprise, she felt a tear trickle hotly down her cheek. She would have to settle this tomorrow with Naruto. When Naruto left the restaurant, his date in tow, he was mad enough to spit nails. The plan had been to show Hinata just how badly these guide women could behave, how patently obvious their tactics could be, and Tsunade had filled the teaching position perfectly. What he had not expected was that Hinata would not only miss the point, but eclipse even Tsunade's blatant performance. Naruto sighed and sat at his desk the following morning, staring at his computer. He'd been to 2 meetings, dictated several memos and reports, plowed through half a dozen licensing proposals for loan shark licensing dealers. Unfortunately, he hadn't really been paying attention to any of them. Frankly, her performance had shaken him badly. He wished he could just say it was anger, but he knew better. Just thinking of the episode made his blood heat, even now. He got up to open his window, hoping that a cool breeze from the ocean would lower his temperature. He could only enjoy for a second before his door flew open. What the hell is this? Naruto whipped his head around. His eyes burned at the sight of her. Although he noticed the rage in her big, pure eyes, his blue ones couldn't help but rake down to her body. She was wearing an ice blue sweater with a white mini skirt that showed off her long legs like an art display. His temperature inched up another notch. Before anything else could inch up, he grabbed the printout she held, focusing on it as if it was the most important document in the world. It appears to be a picture of you eating a cherry. Naruto suppressed a grin. Wait a second, how did you get this picture? Hinata stared at him dumbfounded. I thought you'd posted it up in your company website, which happened to be linked to a whole lot of different departments in this company. Naruto gritted his teeth. Jiraiya. He's the only possible person. Naruto felt like punching Jiraiya as he saw a flash of watery eyes on Hinata. Calm down, Hinata. His executive assistant walked in at that moment. Boss. Naruto frowned, wishing Hinata had shut the door before she exploded. Yes, he snapped. Naruto's blood chilled when he noticed it was Jiraiya. Jiraiya's eyes never left Hinata's legs. Did you finish going over those memos I typed up? Jiraiya. Naruto ordered calmly, steel in his voice. Did you or did you not post this picture on the company's website? Alarmed by his superior's sudden bluntness, Jiraiya fumbled for an answer. Next time, if you attempt any of this again, there will be a black record, and I can assure you that your record will not be very impressive to other prospective employers. Translation. Next time this happens again, you're fired. Hinata sent a poisonous glare over to Jiraiya. Naruto escorted him to the door. Before Naruto could shut the door, however, 3 other men walked up to him, papers in hand. One of them slipped past Naruto, who swore under his breath. Naruto decided to deal with these 2 first before heading back in to haul the other one out. What do you guys want? Naruto said shortly, while keeping an ear open on the younger man and Hinata's conversation. Hi there. I'm Konohamaru. I saw you on the website. Did you? Yeah, and I was wondering if you'd be interested in dinner sometime. Or maybe a movie. The other 2 guys thrust documents into Naruto's hand, all the while ogling at Hinata. Naruto took a quick look at one of the sheets. Damn it, these are memos you guys sent me last month. The 2 smiled sheepishly. Cut me some slack, Naruto. I needed an excuse to get in here. Is that woman hot, Or what? Hot. Other men were calling Hinata hot. Naruto gritted his teeth, and walked back into his office, steering Konohamaru and the other two uninvited employees out of his office. Without another word, he shut the door in their faces, and locked it. He took a deep breath for patience. Naruto turned back to Hinata, who was still standing. He'd never seen this look of anguish and pain on her face. Tell me something, will you? Her voice was low and uneven. How is it that an intelligent man like yourself can be so completely clueless when it comes to women? What do you mean? Oh, right, I forgot, I'm not really a woman, not to you. Her voice was as bitter as coffee grounds. I'm just good old Sonny, one of the guys. Fine for providing food, hanging out with, and making fun of. You make fun of me just as much as I make fun of you, he argued, wishing she'd turn around. Oh, right, add, gives as good as she gets, to that list. Did it ever occur to you that just once, I'd like to take it easy? I know I haven't had much practice, but I'd like to try being girly and sensitive. I'd even like to cry once in a while without being mocked at. Did you ever think that what you're saying and doing was hurting me? That punctured him. God, Hinata, you know I never want to hurt you. She finally turned around, and her eyes were swimming with unshed tears. I'm sorry, Naruto. Last night, then the website, no, at first I thought you posted that picture up and I said to myself that it was the last straw. Although, well, since you didn't post it. Hinata, Naruto breathed. He was over at her side in an instant, tugging her lithe body into his arms. She pulled back. Her eyes were huge and liquid, the lightest purple luminescent. Hinata bit her lip. It's hard to hear from your best friend that you're not pretty, not feminine, that you're never going to get married. Hey, wait a minute, he interrupted, giving her a gentle shake. I never said anything like that. Hinata tilted her head to the side, a sad smile on her face. Not precisely, but then, did you need to spell it out? I've known you forever. I knew what you were trying to say. She pushed out of his arms and walked over to the glass window. It's impossible to disagree with you. I mean, look at me. What would a man want with someone like me? Are you kidding, Hinata? You have plenty to offer a man. He leapt to her defense, trying to undo some of the damage he'd caused. You're smart, and funny. You just don't see it in yourself. Hinata, please. I already feel so low. I know I was just being selfish. I was. Naruto paused, taking a deep breath, and admitted to Hinata what he'd never admit in front of anybody else, not his family, not my friends, not anyone. I was afraid. I was scared you'd change into one of those superficial, man-crazy guide girls. And I was afraid I'd lose the best friend I have. How lame is that, right? She sent him a watery smile. Actually, I kind of know how you feel. I tried calling you last night. I chickened out, because I didn't know how to talk to you about this. He stuck out his hand. Let's make a pact. No matter what happens, we stay best friends. That means we can talk to each other about anything, and whatever else is going on in our lives, we're there for each other. Deal. She shook his hand. Deal, she said and threw her arms around him. Let's not go through this again. He returned the hug fiercely, crushing her to him. We won't. I'm not going to risk losing you again, Angel. Angel. Hinata's cheeks were flushed, and her eyes were wide and clear, and looking up at him with that tenderness that he hadn't seen in way too long. She fitted snugly against his body. He stroked the back of her head, feeling the silky softness of hair beneath his fingers. He looked down, and she looked up. He leaned down, close, his eyes never leaving hers. Just a breath away from her lips. He stopped. Wait a second, what am I doing? He jerked away as if she were an electrified fence. He put a few crucial feet of space between them, then stared at her. Naruto could feel his heart pounding in his chest like a jackhammer, and noticed that her eyes were huge, almost wary. Well, I'm glad we got that all straightened out, he said, clearing his throat. Oh, me, too. Hinata still stared at him. Naruto cleared his throat again. Boy, that was a close one. What had he been thinking? I've got an idea of how I can make it up to you. Naruto, Hinata said in a skeptical tone. We'll do a trial run. Meet me at Sharky's, around 7. This better be good, Hinata muttered. And dress up. Her eyes widened. Huh, just thrust me, Naruto said, nodding. You're lucky I'm free tonight, Hinata replied, completely forgotten that it was a designated date night, according to Neji. 7 at Sharky's. Got it. The problem was, this had seemed like a good idea in theory. Now, looking at it, it occurred to Naruto that this whole plan would have worked a lot better if the gang hadn't taken their job so seriously. Naruto, this is ridiculous, Hinata said, laughing. I think my brother had a spectacular idea, Gaara said, throwing an arm around her shoulders. Kiba caught her hand in his. If you want to learn to catch a guy, you gotta go to the source. Nobody said anything about catching guys, Naruto said sharply. I just said she needed to be more comfortable around them when she's dressed up. And dressed up she was. She looked sharp in a dark lavender dress, similar to the pink one he'd first seen her. The color matches her eyes. She was wearing heels again, too. Naruto scrupulously avoided staring at her legs. Or her chest. Or her face, really. He's pretty much resigned himself to talking to the top of her head. But the other guys had no such problems. Hey, babe, Kiba said, beaming his best come-on smile at her. Come here often. Kiba, we were just here last Monday night, remember? Catching the game. Kiba frowned, nonplussed. Oh, right. He brightened, and tried the smile again. But you didn't look like this, gorgeous. Naruto, this is insane. She walked over to where he was standing. He noticed the guys riveted to the gentle sway of her hips, even his brother. And had to stop himself from glaring at them. It's not like they're really men. I resent that, Gaara piped. Yeah, just give us a try, baby, Iruka said, wriggling his eyebrows. We'll be plenty enough love for you, hot stuff. Hot stuff. Gorgeous. What, do you guys get handed a manual in high school or something? Naruto, Kiba whined. She's not taking this seriously. How can I? Hinata laughed. She was wearing darker lipstick, too, and her eyes seemed even larger in the dim light. Whatever she was doing with makeup was working, big time. You guys keep clowning around. Just pretend you're at some big party or something, Naruto said, trying his best to be focused. He'd promised her he'd get her out of the mess he'd landed her in. He meant it. If he had to help her become the girliest woman on the face of the planet, then he'd do it. No matter what the guys say, just keep smiling, but throw attitude at them. What kind of attitude? Hinata asked, bewildered. Like they're bugs. He smiled. Teaching her to be girly didn't mean she had to be a pushover, however. He wasn't about to teach her how to catch a guy. Like you're the most beautiful woman alive, and they're wasting your time. Like they're insane to even dream they've got a chance with you. Hey, Naru, no fair, Kiba said, frowning. I get treated like that by every other woman I meet. You're ruining all my fun here. Hinata smiled wickedly, slowly getting the idea. You mean, treating them like dirt, and they'll revere me as a goddess. It's a trade secret, but yup, that's it. Naruto smiled back, savoring the look on her face. This is going to be good. Hinata sashayed back to the bar stool she'd been sitting on. Naruto couldn't help but be riveted this time, either. The sassy little swing in her hips was mesmerizing. Kiba stepped up to the plate again. Hey, pretty lady. Hinata's eyes were wide and sexy, but her voice was coolly amused. This, she gestured down the length of her body, is not for you. She pointed at him, then smiled and looked away. Kiba goggled. Iruka laughed and him aside. Excuse me, miss, do you have 50 cents? He grinned. My mother told me to call her when I fell in love. Hinata reached into her purse and produced 3 quarters. Here. After you reach her, try calling somebody who cares. Ooh, she's good, Gaara said as Iruka good-naturedly grumbled and stepped back. Here's a better one. Are you tired? Because you've been running through my mind all night long. Hinata tried to look bored, but the humor glinted through her eyes. Finally, she broke down and laughed. Okay. You win. You get one dance. Gaara broke into a huge grin, leading her off to the dance floor. Works every time, he called over his shoulder, before pushing his way through the shimmying crowd. Naruto watched as Hinata moved, noticing that several pairs of male eyes were watching her with predatory awareness. He prayed he didn't have the same look on his own face. Naruto didn't want to be attracted to her. He didn't want to change what they had. All this time, they'd been friends. At first, he could still superimpose the image of her as a bratty 8-year-old over her. When that didn't work, he focused on her grubby jeans and oversized sweatshirts. Frankly, he'd never let himself see Hinata as a woman before. Now he didn't have much choice. The proof of her transformation hit him in the face like a slap. He watched as she laughed at some joke Gaara was making. She looked incredible. She was happy, vibrant, so alive she almost shimmered with it. Naruto wanted her. Want all you want, his conscience chimed in, but hand off. She's a friend, remember. Women come and women go, but friends are for life. It might be bad if he couldn't spend as much time with her because she got married. It would be a comparative hell, however, if he couldn't see her ever again. The song finished, and Gaara led Hinata away by one hand, grinning smugly. Before they could make it to the side of the floor, another man stepped in front of Hinata, stopping her. Naruto shot to his feet. Hinata's eyes widened as the man yelled something to her over the fast tempo of the next song. She glanced nervously at Gaara, who shrugged. She bit her lower lip, then shrugged, herself, and accompanied the man back out on the dance floor. Gaara walked over to Naruto, whose mouth had dropped open. Can you believe that? One dance, and that guy just sneaks in and steals Hinata out from under me. Naruto ignored the disturbing thought that phrase provoked. What were you thinking? He yelled instead. She's off with a perfect stranger. So? Gaara shrugged. She seems to be holding her own. That was the point of this whole exercise, wasn't it? Naruto saw the man try to dance a little too close to Hinata, presumably under the pretext of whispering to her. Naruto started to stride toward the floor with the intention of beating the man senseless. Whoa, whoa, Gaara grabbed him. Easy, fella, she's okay. Naruto growled but noticed that Hinata firmly nudged the man away from her, shaking her head. This is not for you. He saw her mouth to the man, frowning. Naruto's breathing eased. You know, Gaara said perceptively, if you're not going to sell something, don't put it in the window. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Naruto said, too intent on keeping the track of Hinata to really pay attention to his brother's inscrutable words. Gaara gave him a gentle shove. It means she looks beautiful, man. Leave her alone. I am leaving her alone, Naruto growled. Obviously. Hinata walked back to the group with her dance partner following her like a puppy. She had a small smile on her face. She turned. Thanks for the dance. Can I have your number? The man asked eagerly. She thought for a minute. No. Why not? You heard her, buddy, Naruto said, glowering at him as he put an arm around Hinata's shoulders. Back off. All right. Geez. The man frowned at Naruto, then sent one last hopeful smile at Hinata. I love your picture on the website. I can't wait to tell the guys I danced with the cherry babe. Hinata's eyes widened as the man walked away. It was a great picture, you've got to admit, Kiba said, chuckling at her surprise. Got a good number of hits, too. Hinata arched an eyebrow and glared at him, really? Kiba smirked, unrepentant. The mystery thing really got a lot of guys going. A babe is a babe. No average guy is going to run into a, hand me the cocoa butter, babe in the supermarket. So, what's your point? Hinata asked, skeptically. I'm a, pass the frozen peas babe. The point is, you're obviously in real life, you're gorgeous, but you're also available. And that's kind of a turn on. He grinned lasciviously. That thing with your tongue is pretty hot, too. I kept a copy of the photo for myself. Hinata covered her face in her hands. Oh, God. Hey, can I get a few copies? Uruka inquired. A couple of guys down at the surf shop wanted to see her, but she got taken off the site too soon. No, you can't, Hinata and Naruto said at the same time. All right, sheesh. Uruka looked pained. Hinata took a quick glance at her watch and sighed. I've got to go, guys. Thanks for the education. The guys put up a chorus of complaints. It's still early, Gaara pleaded, smiling. What? You got an early date tomorrow or something? Two, actually, she said, causing Naruto's eyes to narrow. The first being a spa date with Temari, starting with an early morning jog with Neji and Kankuro in the tow as well. And since Neji's there, that means really early. What's the other one? You wouldn't believe it, Hinata said. There's this big party at the Century Plaza. Big formal dress party. If he weren't so anxious, I'd say no. Hinata clasped her hands together. I just hope I can get through it without making a fool of myself, especially after the website thing. Naruto felt an aftershock of guilt he'd been hit with that afternoon. Hinata smiled languidly. I'll see you guys later. I'll walk you to the car, Naruto said. It's not that far. I'm coming with you, he said insistently. Don't try to get her number, Kiba teased. Trust me, she's tough. Hinata stuck a tongue out at him. They left amid a barrage of catcalls and loud commentary from the gang. Hinata just smiled. Naruto didn't. Thanks for the help, Naruto. I know this can't be easy for you. He grimaced. What can't be? The fact that you're trying to help me win this bet. I might have to pay you that $1,000 in installments. Don't be an idiot, he said, rolling his eyes. We'll work something out. Hinata nodded with a thankful smile, then shivered. Here, Naruto said, taking off the light jacket he was wearing and throwing it over her shoulders. You'll catch a cold. How did I get lucky enough to get a best friend like you?